College sports as we know it might be over forever, and it's all because of one swimmer. This is Grant House. He's an Arizona State swimmer, an academic All-American who decided to take on the NCAA in a monumental court case known as House versus NCAA. Grant's case versus the NCAA is part of a series of court cases that the NCAA just settled for $2.7 billion, now allowing student athletes to get paid directly through the university, not necessarily just through NIL funds. But there's so much more to this court case than meets the eye, and many worry that the impacts of this case could lead to the cutting of Olympic sports like swimming. But before we get into any of the impacts, let's rewind a little bit and figure out how we got here and get a quick little history lesson on NIL. For years, the NCAA has held their athletes in amateur status, enforcing them to not be paid for any of their on-field performance or marketing efforts, such as jersey or ticket sales. However, on July 1st of 2021, that changed forever when the NCAA ruled that athletes were now allowed to profit off their name, image, and likeness. This essentially meant that college athletes were now allowed to partner with companies like Raising Cane's or Nike to promote their business while in turn getting paid for their marketing efforts. However, universities weren't allowed to facilitate any of these NIL conversations, and they were having to be done through external boosters or what was called NIL collectives, thus ensuring that the university was never paying the players. As a college swimmer, Grant was constantly being marketed by the university on banners throughout campus, at the NCAA championships on ESPN, or even being broadcasted on the Olympic Channel while representing Team USA at the World University Games. But the reality was, Grant never even saw a dime of that. And that's because there wasn't a revenue sharing model set up between the university and its athletes, and nor was this legal in accordance with NCAA laws. As the president of ASU's Student Athlete Advisory Committee, or SAC, he realized that there was a huge potential for change, but it needed to start with the student athletes. And one afternoon in 2020, his life changed forever with one phone call.
Yeah, so the way that it came about, I definitely never thought I'd be in this position. When I went to ASU, I got pretty involved immediately with advocating for student athletes. And Student Athlete Advisory Committee, SAC, I bet a lot of college athletes are really familiar with that. And, just something to actually try to move the needle in benefiting athletes. And I saw some instances where if it was a direct push by a very collective group of people that you could make some change, but I found that ultimately the people in SAC, it's a great initiative, it's a great idea, it's a great group to be with, but there's not too much actually getting done from it. And that was a little bit defeating. And then in my time as a SAC president over 2 years, I really wanted to kind of change that. That's why I became it. And those were my first steps into really understanding what I felt like student athletes can get, what they weren't getting, hearing their needs, hearing their complaints, their successes, what other teams were getting, what some weren't, and really starting to get a more global view of that rather than just the swimming perspective and the football perspective of what we think. One of my teammates, we were training off-site at some location that wasn't closed down yet. We were off campus, and I was just outside after our swim and just laying on my towel, just drying off in the sun at 95 degrees temperature, whatever. And and then I hear a name, someone's like, Grant. And I was like, what do you need? And she's like, you need to talk to my mom. I think you'd be really good for this. And I was like, I don't know what this is about, but all right. Hello, Mr. Smith. And from there, she's like, hey, would you be willing to talk about your experience as an Olympic Olympic sport athlete? Because at that point, I had represented Team USA 4 different times in my career, gone to college, competing for ASU, and so I had a unique experience, especially in swimming. And so I met someone else from Haggard Berman, the law firm that I'm represented by, and they just kind of wanted my representation as, my experience. I just displayed there, went to high school, represent Team USA, went to college, and instead of going pro, represent Team USA 2 more times. And, was on ESPN, was on for NCAAs, for Team USA, was on different broadcasts throughout that time, USA Swimming, the Olympic Channel, all these different things that I never thought of. It was really this kind of paradigm of beginning to understand what role I had, and they wanted me to kind of be this voice of this entire class, especially with my time, spending time my whole college career in SAC And understanding that platform kind of gave me the trampoline jump to go into this and, really advocate on a much larger platform, the platform that I kind of always thought could exist and should exist for athletes.
That one phone call changed the course of Grant's college athlete experience. He was still swimming as a college athlete, but he was now taking on the NCAA, the governing body in which he swam under, in a national lawsuit. Thankfully, Grant wasn't taking on the NCAA alone. He was suing them alongside women's college basketball player Sedona Price and college football player Tamir Oliver. Their case was set to be presided over by Northern California Judge Wilkinson, who had previously ruled on many NCAA athlete court cases, including the Ed O'Bannon versus NCAA in 2015, which ruled in favor of the student athletes. But rather than tell you about the case, I wanted to have Grant tell you in his own words exactly what the specifics of the case are and what changes he's hoping to see for all college athletes.
Going into the aspects of the cases, there's essentially 3 sections: broadcasting revenues for men's and women's basketball, Sedona Prince, broadcasting rights revenue for football, Tamir Oliver, and then revenue or representation for Olympic sport athletes. And what a lot of people don't know is my prong is more proactively pushing forward the rules set in place, because we have the NIL rules in place now, and those are great. But the reality is, not a lot of people know this, is that none of those are solidified. None of those are laws. None of those have to be solidified or kept tomorrow or an hour after our time together here. There could be an announcement where 49 of the states remove NIL. It's not a thing anymore. Right now, it's just a capitalism aspect of no one wants to have a big disadvantage, so everyone's doing it because it's allowed now. But at any point, it can be stripped away from us. And I don't think that's fair, because a lot of people are benefiting from it. A lot of people are learning with it, and it's changing lives too. Factually, from dozens of athletes. And I think my involvement was that representation of Olympic sport athletes, because I can speak with football and basketball players, but I definitely can resonate deeper with Olympic sport athletes and the process they go with every 4 years, conference championships, NCAA championships, the yearly cycle of that. And so that's kind of my role of that. And also the involvement of, there's damages collected for broadcasting rights, but for swimming, that's kind of one or 2 times a year at ESPN on NCAA. So a lot of opportunities for athletes, but they were never able to capitalize on it. And I just felt like that wasn't very fair. There are so many athletes that are so much more talented, even if they're an Olympic champion, than they are at swimming, track, baseball, whether it's writing a book, creating cinema, or creating music. They have so many hidden talents that they could be leveraging and pouring themselves into, but it really just doesn't serve them any purpose other than a side hobby or benefit until now. And that's kind of what I always thought of. I was like, they should be allowed to, they don't need to, but they should be allowed to have that opportunity to fill these other cups of their life as a human being, instead of just, athlete or bust, 4 years. After 4 years, good luck if you didn't do anything else that you felt like was worthy of your time. So definitely, I felt like the NIL space really opens that up to really allow people to be more of their authentic selves.
But before we get into the potential impacts that this lawsuit could have on the sport of swimming, I want to thank today's sponsor, Swimming World. I've partnered with Swimming World to help bring you guys the latest up-to-date news in the sport of swimming. That's right, there's going to be a whole lot more swimming content on my YouTube channel. But for all the latest up-to-date live meet results and swimming news, make sure to head over to Swimming World to get the inside scoop. They got the real stories, and it's just the facts. Can't get enough swimming content? Check out their Summer of Swimming special, where you can get Swimming World magazine for free until Labor Day. Yes, you heard me right, completely free, and you can cancel at any time. Don't wait, because this deal will not last long, and you guys don't want to miss out. So make sure to go check out the link in the description to check out Swimming World's Summer of Swimming to get access to these exclusive magazines. Thanks so much to Swimming World, and now let's get back to the video. While this case is a massive victory for student athletes and universities, there's still some losers in this battle. Many fans worry that non-revenue generating sports, traditionally Olympic sports like swimming, will get cut due to the fact that the NCAA is forcing the universities to help cover the $2.7 billion bill. Of that $2.7 billion settlement, 40% will be paid by the NCAA, 24% will be paid by power conference schools, and the remaining 36% will be paid by other Division I schools, leaving these smaller schools to feel like they're fronting the bill. With such a weight coming on these smaller D1 schools, we could see some programs make the necessary cuts to ensure the financial obligations to the NCAA are being met. While it's too early to tell what the overarching impacts of this court case might be, Grant sees an optimistic future for all college athletes and calls for fans to not worry about the impacts in swimming, but more so what we can do with this new opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many far-reaching impact points that it's always hard to examine every single one or understand exactly what's going to happen, especially like telling the future. Like no one can really do that. We have ideas, we have thoughts or what's envisioned, and I just envision a better future for athletes in college and making that future more realistic and more attainable in a closer future. And I think one of the things that I've learned along the way is, one, the term student athlete was actually created by the NCAA so that they didn't have to pay athletes for being employees for training or not working for 20 hours a week, plus travel, plus recovery, plus all these intangible things that they don't track because it's not present with a coach or something like that. So it was like self-created, and that's very suspect at best to me to begin with. But to create this idea and this platform, this field, this vision for them to go into, where it's not obviously the biggest revenue generating sports are typically football and basketball, and the reality is people will just designate those as the revenue sports. The reality is every sport generates revenue. People don't understand that. It's just to different levels and to different magnitudes. It's going to take a little bit more effort from people. It's going to take a little bit more energy. It's going to take more work ethic for people to elevate the sport of swimming, cycling, track, field. It's not just going to be, hey, let's go to Super Bowl Sunday. Like, we have championships in March. We have championships in February. We have championships in August and November. Like, we need to celebrate those the proper way. And if anyone doubts it, just Google Nebraska volleyball, and you will find that they sold out the Nebraska football stadium. So we have the blueprint, but we saw the evidence already. We have the exact cutout. Shift the volleyball season to preseason football and have that excitement fill these stadiums, get that revenue for the sport, the attention and the excitement into that as we're leading into football. And then it just rides into preseason, rides into the season of football. Volleyball has had its success. Then we don't have to worry about this fallout. There's a bunch of different ways that we can be spending more of our energy and attention, rather than saying like, no, I can't imagine what's outside. Instead saying, okay, let me open the door and go out. Let me see what this looks like. Let me see how this works. And I just think it'll take a little bit more energy and effort for people to, I'm not saying that swimming's ever going to be bigger than football in America, at least in our lifetimes. I hope it will be. That'd be epic. But there are different ways to be making swimming more lucrative and revenue based at every college. Where it's going will open more opportunities and create spaces for people to be more proactive. And, the consequences that come with it, I think it really just creates more autonomy for, athletes to create ownership for their sport, with themselves, what they want to do with their lives. So just a better future, more opportunities, and a platform that will allow others to mature and utilize more resources around them.
While many have mixed opinions about this case and its impacts, I think overall what Grant House has done is a net positive for the NCAA. Things like this help keep college sports relevant. In an era where we were seeing so many college football and basketball players just go one and done and go to the professionals, this helps keep athletes in the college ecosystem. While many have concerns that college swimming programs and other Olympic sports would get cut, I don't think the rollout of this will actually have as severe of an impact as many think. That's because if we can continue to invest in the high revenue generating sports like football and basketball, keeping these kids around longer in the programs, that's going to be a net positive to the universities and to the NCAA, helping keep relevance for the NCAA, thus boosting up the lower revenue generating programs like a swimming, like in other Olympic sports. So for this reason, I don't think there's that big of a need to panic like many have so far. That's just my thoughts though. This is an ongoing conversation, so let me know what your thoughts are down below. I really hope I don't eat my words, and I hope that swimming programs aren't impacted like many have forecasted that they will be. While this court case is a monumental shift for the NCAA, the impact and the rollout have yet to be seen. But I only have one question left. Where can I get my cut as a former college student athlete? Seriously though, who do I have to call? What Google survey do I have to fill out? I'll do it. If you want to hear more about Grant's story and learn more about House versus NCAA, make sure to become a member of my channel to get access to my extended 30-minute interview with Grant and check out all my other episodes with other college and professional athletes. Make sure to subscribe to my channel to stay up to date with all things swimming and NIL. And with that said, I'll see you guys all next week.